Hello everyone. So welcome to our second session, keynote session. So we have Mr. Anand Bagaria as a keynote speaker. So talking about Mr. Anand ji. So he is the managing director of Nimbus Holding Private Limited. Mr. Bagaria is a corporate entrepreneur, businessman of Nepal with substantial appetite for growth in and out of Nepal. His prime focus is on agribusiness sector, feed milling, solvent attraction, edible oil expelling pulses, and TVP processing, food and agri-processing, agri-input, import, trading, and distribution of thereof products. Mr. Bagaria is also involved in PP woven and non-woven fabrics, geotextile, packaging fabrics, and paint, resin, and chemicals. He is currently building an e-commerce platform in an attempt to disrupt the conventional FMCG distribution network. Also working on creating an ecosystem infrastructure to catalyze agri-processing. A self-made businessman, Anand Ji, is like he did his bachelor from engineering in Bangalore, completed his master's in entrepreneurial program EMP, organized by MIT and EO. Throughout his career, he has been involved in various organizations. He is the co-founder of Himalayan Climate Initiative (HCI), executive member of FNCCI, treasurer at the Nepal India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, member of Young President Organization YPO, and so on. I don't have any words from here for him. So welcome, Mr. Anand Bagariaji.
Thank you, Aarti. Seems like you've done a fair amount of homework on finding out about me. That's a good start. Thank you very much. I heard Mr. Jagmohan speak on the subject earlier, and I think a lot of that has a lot of what I had to say has already been covered. The disadvantage of being the second speaker, but then nonetheless, I would share with you some of my own experiences and also, some of my own opinions on how things will change in the days to come. Uh, Very rightly said, redefine, restructure, and run your sales strategies. I mean, I would say sales strategies in the new context. In Nepal, I would imagine most of the audience here is from Nepal, and in Nepal, we've had many eras. We talked about, we were till some time back, we were talking about pre-earthquake era and the post-earthquake era, and now we are talking about pre-pandemic era and the post-pandemic era. And prior to that, we were talking about the insurgency and the Nepal being a kingdom and so on and so forth. But in these 25 to 30 years of working, I've been working for the last 25 years. I started working in 1995, and the first entrepreneurial stint was importing of FMCG products and distribution of thereof across Nepal. So coming back to the new strategy or the new redefined and restructure that we talk about in sales. My first question to each one of you, I wish I could see each one of you alive, but nonetheless, my first question would be, or rather a submission that I would make is, most of us at this point of time are witnessing some kind of discomfort. I mean, we each one of us feel some kind of discomfort, whether be it in personal life, be it in business life, be it in your careers. This pandemic has shaken us up quite badly. And it is not just at the individual level that it has shaken us up. It has shaken up businesses. It has shaken up structures. It has shaken up governments. It has shaken up a lot of things that were happening around us. Not that things were not being shaken up before the pandemic. A lot of disruption was happening. A lot of changes were happening. But then what the pandemic did is brought in pace to the whole thing. I mean, things changed so suddenly that I don't think anybody is in a position to say that I was prepared for this. And neither was I. Neither I would love to hear from somebody who would say that he expected a pandemic and was prepared for it. In Nepal, if you remember the days of insurgency, what I'm trying to emphasize on this is that as Nepali businessmen or as Nepali people who have been involved in business, we as countrymen have been very agile. If you remember the insurgency days, we used to be. Those were the days when travel was difficult, transportation was difficult. I remember very categorically driving from here to Chitwan and being made to get off the car a couple of times for checkings and so forth. It was not the most comfortable situation. I used to get calls from home saying not to be outside after it is dark. And I was expected to call back every now and then to say I'm alive or I am still around. So that was one situation, but then we did business on those days. Yes, some companies bowed out, but then those companies which stayed on are probably the strong companies that still exist. Similarly, post the insurgency, our political structure changed. We got in something, a reformed structure in terms of tax regime, in terms of permissions, and so forth. If you remember, those of you who remember, there used to be a time when Nepal had only one tax structure, which was at the customs point, and that was called sales tax and the import tax. And whatever you got in was over. Then we got into the VAT regime. We as businessmen adjusted to that. Post the tax structure came the earthquake, and we kept saying that it has done a lot of damage and it has created a lot of opportunity and so forth. But then just when we were getting over this hangover of earthquake, the pandemic happened. And the pandemic happened like how? Pandemic happened, if you look at the insurgency, it was stretched over a long period of time. We had enough time to adjust. Some were quicker and some were, earthquake was a short instance, but then it had long lasting effects. But then, it was only Nepal. But this pandemic is something which happened all over the globe. I mean, if each one of us, if we recall, it almost felt like somebody pressed the pause button on the global scenario. The shipping lines stopped, the airlines stopped, the transport stopped. For a moment, it felt like, the whole earth or the whole ecosystem was coming to an end. We all were busy hoarding stuff. We wanted to, each one of us were being so selfish that we wanted to just store in as much as food and other things into our homes. I do vividly remember images of stores in the US which had run out of toilet papers. I mean, that's the kind of scenario we got into, and something very unique happened. I mean, nobody knew what to expect, what not to expect, but it happened so fast that now when you look back 18 months, sometimes even it feels like, March then was a false alarm. Or did we overreact to things? Or did we, did we kind of miscalculate, or somebody created a fear that was probably not so right? Look at it today. Today, the situation, okay, except for the vaccine, not much has changed, but life is more or less back to normal. Of course, with a fair amount of caution. So, but what from a business point of view, what triggered, or rather, what did the pandemic trigger is the pace of disruption. I would like you guys to recall companies like Kodak and Nokia, and also recall companies like Uber, F&B, Facebook, and Airbnb, and the likes of our own Nepali Sasto Deal and Daraz. how things change, right? Things change overnight. I mean, Aarti just mentioned that I am dabbling into some e-commerce venture. We started something called Nimbus Bazaar overnight. It was the need of the hour. We had so many people who could not move into the markets, and we thought, okay, let's try this out. So if it changed so fast that I would like to give you a perspective on just try and go back 18 months and see what were we doing as salespeople. I'm a typical, any organization would make a sales plan, crunch the numbers, look at the products which would to ride on, which are the products to be pushed and which are the products to be withdrawn, and who are your competitors, and so on and so forth, right? And from that business plan, you would come up with sales numbers, and then the whole team would go chasing those numbers. You would go to the market, meet people, make friends with them. Some of them you would try to mend your dealings, and so on and so forth. So typical day of a salesman or a sales manager would be to collect orders, to collect payments, offer schemes, monitor stocks, offer discounts, trade schemes, manage expiry, get the goods back, dump excessive inventory in order to achieve targets, give excessive credit in order to preempt sales, or dump products into the into the retail or the wholesale trade outlets, so that they are already full of material and competitor cannot take it. Somehow or the other, we were just struggling to get our numbers, first primary and then the secondary sales, and then monitor sales, and then eventually what happens is, once the cycle is over, you repeat. And as any typical person who's been in sales would realize, that no matter how much we say, it was quite a monotonous job, right? And it also felt like a typical scenario where we were at the mercy of the trade. The manufacturing guy or the importing guy did not have control over his product in terms of pricing and other things. He was dependent on the on the trade or the retail or the modern outlets or HRCP and all these guys we talk about. And literally, the sales job felt like going to beg to buy, or going to beg to sell, and then again going back to beg for your payment. And then there were some, there are some outlets which have good footfalls and good movement. They would literally give, deduct discounts on some excuse or the other. And that would create a lot of friction with the buyer as well as with the manufacturer, or back home at your head office. This is what we were doing, right? But then in Nepal, I think the lockdown happened on 24th of March. On 24th of March, things changed. Some ran out of businesses. Some businesses were in high demand. And the terms of the trade changed overnight. I remember we are into some of the essential commodities, especially food stuff. We were called to give them goods, and even before we asked, we got our payments. Not even forget the 60-day or the 30-day cycle. We got our payments fourth day after the last delivery, pre-pandemic delivery. The situation changed, right? What happened is the lockdown happened. People panicked. A lot of things, a lot of companies bowed down. A lot of individuals bowed down, but those who continued saw the change. Another thing that happened was prices skyrocketed. It looked like it was the end of the world, and it was a race of who would survive longer, who would survive for a longer period than the other one. But then, we were willing to pay the price. We were willing to stock in material. We all, in our own ways, hoarded foodstuff, hoarded masks, and hoarded sanitizers. I remember putting up a post on Facebook saying those who have K95 K95 masks at home, it makes sense, or it is charity if you donate it to the hospitals. This was in March. Today, those I bought a KN95 mask for 500 rupees each. Today, a KN95 mask is available at 10 rupees. So there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of movement. There was a lot of correction. A lot of charitable groups came forward. I mean, there was in every nook and corner there was a charitable group trying to feed people. Amazing gesture. I mean, the kind of camaraderie that we saw was phenomenal. Online delivery companies popped up. I remember there was a meeting at the Ministry of Industries, and to my surprise, there were almost about 50, 60 companies present there. Lot of adaptations happened, a lot of reinvention happened. If you remember, I mean, over these periods, most of the restaurants run out of business for a while, and then all of them became takeaway or a delivery service restaurants. I'm sure each one of us have ordered food from one of the restaurants or the other, of course with a limited menu, but whatever could be done at that point of time, I mean, we found our ways. Even with products, there were limited brands available. I remember people talking about, give me rice. It didn't matter which brand of rice at that point of time. What mattered was good rice. And who provided that rice? Not the online guys. It was the guys it was the shopkeepers or the shops in your own locality. Do you remember some people ran out of money? I mean, not some, a lot of people didn't have money. A lot of companies couldn't pay their salaries. A lot of people did not, who were living hand to mouth on a daily basis, did not have money to buy things. So either the charity organizations helped, or I think the biggest work that was done by the shopkeepers in your own locality. Hamro toll ko pasale horu. They were the ones who extended credit to the people who were the regular customers in the past many years. We need to recognize their importance. We are culturally a nation where these synergies and these kind of empathies do matter. Credits were extended. I mean, credits were extended for those companies where the business was not happening. Let's say, for instance, the construction industry, the paint industry, the many other plastic packaging industries. I mean, each one of us, each business runs on a credit cycle, on a monetary cycle, and there was a lot of tolerance. There was a lot of tolerance by the banks, who otherwise are very, very ruthless. Even the central bank, pitched in. The budget was a slight disappointment, but then, compensated by the monetary policy that central bank came up with. It was a huge respite to a lot of people who otherwise on normal terms would have been blacklisted by the financial sector. So, a lot of adjustments, a lot of corrections, a lot of what was more important is that people started looking at alternates. The cinema halls closed down, but the number of movies we watched was much more than what we used to watch earlier. The physical meetings stopped, but then I think we met more often than ever. The communication part of it became so important that we started using WhatsApp and our phones and the Zooms and the Teams and the works. We were communicating, the hierarchy was broken, and we were communicating with every key actor in our own industry. Masks and sanitizers became the order of the day. Even today, when we move around, we carry a mask, whether we wear it or not. Every time you see a sanitizer, we tend to wash our hands. So, a lot of things have changed in the last 18 months, and probably I would like, if I may say so, it is the fastest change human race has seen. And in this context, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of jobs were lost. lot of insecurities around jobs were felt. I had people who came up to me and said, in case you are considering job cuts, it is okay if you don't pay us for a few months, but then please don't do the job cuts. I mean, it was such a moment where whether you whatever you do did not feel justified. If you did job cuts for the sake of the company, for the company it felt right, but then what happens to your colleagues who you've been with last 10 years, 15 years, right? So a lot of things changed. So talking about changes, I mean, I would like to put in a disclaimer here. A lot of most of the things that I'm saying are my personal opinions and my own experiences, and do feel to differ, and do be open to discussing it out with me. And if you do have a vehement disagreement, I would love to meet you in person and talk it out. Some of the changes that we saw, I mean, some of the changes that I saw, one of the typical things I saw, or rather, if you guys, all the sales guys must remember, I see a lot of these visiting cards which says, I am manager, sales and distribution, manager, sales and marketing. This whole thing has kind of dissolved. It has kind of dismantled itself. Sales is a different job now, distribution is a different job, marketing is a different job, and they don't necessarily, they can collaborate, but they don't necessarily can be done together. All this has changed. Sales, distribution, marketing are different subjects. And the biggest change I feel, and which had been a very, very big pain point for me every time I spoke to the sales team, is sasto ramro udharo chahiyo sale garna ko. This whole sasto ramro udharo has changed or is changing. People started appreciating products. They had they started appreciating a price against a product for a quality, and the customer always paid cash. So where is the udharo? There is most of the companies realized the inherent inefficiency in this whole distribution system, and every company now is somehow or the other trying to reach the customer straight. Even earlier, we were trying to reach our customers straight. I mean, all the advertisement promotions were never intended for the trade. It was intended for the customer. But what we realized, I mean, of the many things that we did realize generally in the sales front, what we realized is multi-layer distribution system that we currently follow is inefficient. Or rather, it is distorted and manipulated, if I may say so. This has been very well recognized by most of the companies. I think it was recognized even earlier, but this time the nail on the coffin was hit hard. Credit and payment systems. Do you remember during the lockdown, those who were still in business, the money came in. You didn't have to go collect money. The money was clocking on your account. All you had to make sure is you got the money before delivering the next lot of goods. It is possible. Why were we giving credit after credit unnecessarily earlier? Credit is not sales. Credit is a banking job. Let the banks do that. Of course, some businesses died, some changed forms, and some have become stronger. I mean, that's the theory of evolution, right? Survival of the fittest. And interestingly, the number of companies which survived outnumbers the number of companies which bowed out by leaps and bounds. So this is a very, very positive sign. And yes, while we talk about it, a few things also changed, which have been very integral part of sales, marketing, distribution that we talk about. The branding and advertising methodology have changed. On March 24th, where there was so much of fear about touching anything and everything, you were wearing gloves. We don't wear gloves anymore. We were wearing gloves at that point of time. touching a newspaper and a currency note was a taboo. I stopped newspaper. I used to get a stack of newspapers on my table every day. I used to get updated on happenings around the globe through that, and I used to also track who is advertising for what. Since March 24th or 26th, I haven't seen a single newspaper, and I don't have that FOMO in the current lingo, if I may say, the fear of missing out. I don't think I have missed a single news. In fact, the newer alternatives of news are more focused and more targeted about what I want to know. Yes, of course, it has also got some distortions in terms of fake news and all kinds of yellow journalism and all that. But then you can be selective on that, right? So, if you notice, the newspaper, radio, TV versus social media and many other, one-to-one, word of mouth, the whole outlook, the paradigm towards how you want to do things have changed. We suddenly decided that we had some huge campaigns planned up pre-pandemic. On the day of the lockdown, we stopped each one of that. We said, let's look at the social media. Social media is more targeted, cheaper. Yes, content development is not cheaper, but then deployment is cheaper. Trust me, I've spoken to some of my friends in the media in India and Nepal, and the day is not far away when the conventional media guys would openly admit that their revenues have gone down and gone down drastically. This is also verified by the fact that all the major media now have started online media or social media. They have their presence on Facebook, they have their presence on Twitter, they have their presence on LinkedIn, and name it. So the challenge at the social media again remains that there are too many brands, too many of them, too many pages, and the customer retention time is very little, of course. But that's a new challenge. That's the new change we have to address now, right? In these 18 months, we put up 3 or 4 major ads regarding on the social media, and there were 1 or 2 did not even see 1,000 likes. And there was one which crossed about 1.8 million likes. So it is also about managing those things differently. The sales, the whole scenario having changed, a lot of things. See, right now, what we were always trying to impress the customer, and we're still trying to impress the customer. Now the point is you can do it very segregated, age-wise, location-wise, and so on and so forth. And it's high time that the marketing guys start thinking in those lines. Banking has changed. They learned how to operate remotely. I did not have any issues. Maybe in the first week or 10 days after that, I did not have any banking issues. There were digital signatures which were kind of hurriedly put in place. There were, emails and conference calls and all that happened. So banking industry globally, which is supposed to be one of the most rigid industry, in Nepal at least, I can't talk about the rest of the world, we saw a huge agility there. Similarly, so, but again, coming back to banking and the credit part of it, I'm trying to relate the two. So if banking industry can change, and if banking is about giving credit, imagine if you were to go for a sales, or if your collection responsibility, money collecting responsibility is moved out of your job description, how much more efficient would you be? So it's high time we start thinking on those lines. Post-pandemic new world. I mean, now when we talk about with so many changes, we have our own lessons that we learned. Just a moment. Yeah. So with the changes, there were a lot of other lessons that we learned. What we learned is localization. We learned localization during the lockdown as well. If you remember that trade embargo that we had just after the earthquake, we learned about that localization. But then, we humans have this habit of forgetting things too fast. We have very short memory. So the localization bit was emphasized again. Logistics and inventory management as a separate subject and not as a part of sales was emphasized. What did we do during the lockdown? All the companies, all we did was managing inventory and logistics. And those who did it well, they still did it good business. And for Nimbus, it was particularly a good opportunity to introduce our brands to a lot of people. Vyanjan as a brand, which was then relatively new, and even our e-commerce site, Nimbus Bazaar, was relatively new, and we got undivided attention to, what also happened during the lockdown. For those people who were in business, the cash flows improved. And a good cash flow in a business is one of the biggest strengths of a business. I don't need to get into the financial jargons of cash flows, but then each one of us would realize. And this was an anomaly which got corrected to an extent on its own. It still continues. It has deteriorated from the last 18 months, but then I don't see it going back to the original level. Somewhere in between. And people like us, especially the audience here, we need to recognize this and we need to push it forward. Travel decreased. For every damn thing we were traveling. For what? Why are we meeting the same guy 20 times a year? It almost seemed like travel was the job and sales was secondary. Things have changed. We have, at that point of time, I was also a little apprehensive about stopping it, because what if my top lines get affected? But now that it was stopped and my top lines didn't get affected, it makes sense. Meeting on virtual platforms have become crisp and to the point. The same meeting which used to take 3 hours over a cup of tea and gossips and all that gets over in half an hour. Leaves you with a lot of time, personal time, as well as to do a lot of reorganizing. In the last 1.5 years, I have reorganized myself so much so that sometimes it's frustrating that things are moving very slow. What we need to understand as salespeople is that sales is for a business, and a business is to be sustainable. So we need to acknowledge that sustainability is a key factor on the business part of it. The sales team needs to understand that when you deal with a customer, it is eventually the consumer who is going to take it, and customer is just the customer, as in the trade, is just a facilitator. You and me are also just a facilitator. The consumer is the final consumption point. So manufacturer is the trader, customer is the choice maker, and rest, all of us are facilitators. And if the facilitator dominates the business, it is high time the reset is to, it's high time that reset happens. And I think this pandemic kind of pressed the reset button. And a lot of things have changed, and I hope that we don't let it fall back to the original levels. Some of the lessons, I think I am almost at the end of this. Some of the lessons that I think we all learned, and I personally did, is we probably were pushing too hard to sell. Also probably because of an overcrowded, oversupplied market. But in the attempt to push too hard, we ourselves had caused a lot of inefficiencies into the system, and the price for which the consumer was paying. Is that a fair thing? Eventually, each one of us are consumers to some product or the other. And would you like yourself to be cheated or be a victim of somebody else's inefficiency? So that was one lesson. We were traveling way too much. Already discussed that. We were communicating way too less. Even if we were communicating, it was more of a top-down communication, because everything seemed to be very structured then. But the moment the structure broke apart, there was a need to communicate on everything and with everybody. I know my team members more now than I knew about a year and a half ago. Amazing, isn't it? I can call a lot of people by their names. Otherwise, I would have just said, "Oh, this guy looks very familiar," right? In totality, we are a better team now. You understand the team from the ground level and not from the reports that you see on your table on a weekly or a monthly or a quarterly basis. So, of course, having said that, I'm not undermining the fact that a lot of us had a lot of trouble, a lot of businesses went through a lot of trouble. But then the silver lining is that there were a lot of good lessons to learn. I see the future now. I mean, as just as a closing remark, I see the future in a way that, things might seem that they are coming back to normal. And when I say things coming back to normal, I mean the practices and the norms and the structure. But trust me, they are not. They are trying to change. We have learned a few good things, and the industry stalwarts and all of you here, stalwarts in the sales industry, will not let it come back to the original level. Yes, it might fall back a little bit, but then that's a correction from the level zero, right? Monitoring is no longer the way forward. The companies like Google and the likes have taught us that open code is, the way to go. So it's the customer satisfaction and the customer experience. I remember Mr. Jagmohan saying something to this effect about customer experience. It is the how you make the customer feel. He makes the choices. You need to impress him. So that will be more, the center of our strategy. Logistics will be more automated. So you've seen Amazon. I mean, the way it took them many years, but today the way they are automated. I mean, they even some of the courier companies, the DHLs and the FedExes, they're so well automated that automation will come into our lives, and the logistics from company to company will probably be aggregated to a logistics company, and that will bring in efficiency. Multi-layer system will slowly demolish itself. Anything and everything that can be automated will be automated. So wherever you think you are a part of a process which could be automated, it's high time you find your own specialization. Dark stores, see, with the growing real estate prices and the expensive rentals, dark stores combined with online systems will be the future. If you closely monitor Amazon and the even the Nepalese companies like Daraz and Sastoti, you would realize that they are cutting down on their warehouses. Globally, a lot of these popular and sought after stores have come down, but their sales remain the same. So, as salespeople, I see that our jobs in the future and not so far away future would be to provide experiences, and would be to provide not provide would be to explain newer concepts. And with that, I think I come to almost expressing all that I felt. And on the final note, I would like to urge each one of you here to start looking at changes, start adapting changes, and if possible, start leading some of the changes in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anandji and Bhagiraji. It was really inspiring. And let me tell what he was talking about. He was talking about the new sales strategies to adopt in the new normal business world, how to empower the sales force in the new direction with new selling methodologies. And when I was searching about, Googling about Mr. Anandji, I had one question for him, that how can a person be so multi-talented, multitasker, you do lots of things. And I have one question for you, sir, on the chat box. So shall I read that question for you?
Sure.
Okay. So there was a question from Rakesh Singh, and he's the senior manager from CZ Cement, and he was asking, so please tell us about some cement industries, which is decreasing month by month, the price of the cement.
Rakesh ji, I don't know too much about the cement industry per se, but that's yes, you are on the sales side of it. I am the consumer for cement. What I could, but I do have some friends who are in the cement industry, and from what I understand, uh, any product, I mean, especially if it's a commodity. I mean, cement is almost a commodity globally, and cement prices, I would imagine, would depend on two things. One is the raw material prices, and two is the demand and supply. So at this point of time, the cement prices are low, I know, and it's also because construction itself is at low level. And second, because of the rainy season, typically every year the cement sales goes down, and I would assume that that must be the case. But sorry, Rakesh. I mean, I probably am not the right person to answer sector specific and especially on cement. But that is the assumption and the guess I would take.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have a few more questions. So would you like to address those questions?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so this is from Praveen Bakunche, and he's asking, what sort of challenges had you faced during this initial days, your initial days?
My initial days in the pandemic, or my initial days as in my career?
It's not so clear, sir. So
Okay, so I'll tell you both. In the pandemic times, for a moment, it felt like there was no one with you. I mean, you didn't even know who would turn up in office and who would not, or you didn't even know whether you would be allowed to go to office or not. Would you be allowed to run the factory or not? But fortunately, government of Nepal was very proactive on this, and they within a few days they managed to categorize sectors, and they called us, and even the at the factory level, the local CDOs called us, and they supported us in running the factories, and they supported us with the dispatches. Of course, they were also scared. COVID protocols were to be maintained, but then those were the days when COVID protocols were also, anything and everything was a COVID protocol, right? So they were very stringent. You never know which driver was coming in, who was bringing in. So there was so much of uncertainty. But I must say, government of Nepal did a fantastic job. Their response time over a short period was amazing. It might have sounded a little disappointing initially, but then overall it went well. Since this question was a little ambiguous, so I will tell you a little bit about when I started. I started only for a particular reason, that I wanted to be, doing something creative and doing something of my own. So when I started, there were a number of challenges. First challenge was to identify the right sector to get into. What do you want to get into, and getting in, choosing a sector, looking at other people's success is very easy, but then you have to be able to enjoy it. The moment you enjoy what you're doing, then it becomes part of your life rather than trying to drag along with it. So for me, it took me a while. I dabbled with a lot of things, and then I came across animal nutrition, which seemed like a big market and a technically demanding subject, and Yet I saw that there was a gap in the market, and that's how I chose. Challenges were plenty, from managing money to convincing people, to convincing a concept, to everything that could come my way. I mean, every Murphy's law kind of applied to me. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But then I think only thing that I stuck on to is persistence. I said, I kept telling myself that whatever doesn't, whatever doesn't kill you is something worth pursuing, right? So here I am, 95 to 2020. That's almost 26 years.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir. So I think I have a last question. So I think you'll address this one also. Yes, Anand sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is from Bipin Khatka. He's from SR Business Development Officer. Okay. So this is his question. My question is, how can we improve reluctancy changes with customers for new innovative digital products, especially payments?
Bipinji, this, if I've understood correctly, what you're saying is, how do you, introduce new concepts to a customer, whether be it digital or in any case, right? Uh, I think, I mean, how I would go about it is what I can share. I mean, and maybe if you find an answer in that. If I was to introduce, and I will give you an example. I mean, that's one of the best ways to probably see what could be done. So, when you come up with a new concept, you have to you do your internal studies and so on and so forth, and you are convinced that it's a good concept. But then not everybody would buy it because just because you think it is a good concept. So when we launched animal feed back in 2004, we were the first company to launch pellet feed into Nepal. And pellet feed was, prior to that, there were a lot of feed companies, but it was all mash feed. And the difference between mash feed and a pellet feed is, one is dhulo dana, one is goti dana maina. But there's a stark difference in that is, a pellet feed is a balanced diet, whereas a mash feed may not be a balanced diet. Because of segregation, various things, the proteins and the vitamins and the carbs could get segregated. But once you are in a pellet form, it is a balanced diet. But when I went, I remember one particular customer, particular farm we went to, and we told him that, why don't you try it? And you know what he said is, "Ke tapai ko dana ma sun lagya cha ra." I mean, that was the kind of reply I got. And I said, yes, so, but I have to prove it to you. And what I did is, I said, okay, let's do this experiment. Let's split your farm into two parts. On one part, you keep doing what you have been doing, and on the other part, let me do things my way. And the bet is that in case my cost of production is higher than yours, I will pay you the difference amount as a penalty. But in case my cost of production is lower than yours, you need to call 10 of your farmer friends and tell them the story. And trust me, that worked for me. So I'm sure there must be ways of doing even on digital or any other thing. People believe in the proof, and people believe in word of mouth. So if you prove to 10 people believe further. So that is a fundamental that has worked for me, and I think it should work in most of the cases. Yes, Aarti, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the very nice session, for inspiring words, and for motivating us. Thank you so much. So I will move to the third session. But before that, I would like to thank all our sponsors, and I want to mention their names as well. So we are in association with KNP Japan Private Limited, and our main sponsor is NLG Insurance Company Limited, and our sponsor are Ambe Steels Private Limited, Momentum Soft, And our co-sponsor are Dish Home, Himalayan General Insurance, PhonePay, Beetle International. Our supporters are Beetle International, Orange Ball, Dowlak Hill Group of Industries, Ruslan, and eMart Nepal, Sanima Life Insurance, Mangal Decor, ePharmacy, Boglagio, NTS, Star Technology, and Dish Home Group. So thank you so much. So I'll see you on third session. So we will be talking about lots of interesting things. We will be learning lots of things. So I'll see you there. Thank you so much.